So money talks, yeah? By the way, you know, the British government even pretends to ignore the first act of nuclear terrorism. Alexander Litvinenko killed in the middle of London by radioactive substance. So as manipulating capitalist greed, you know, was much more successful than just plain communist ideology. So Obama talks about his friend Dmitry. I'm sure Putin is laughing. Obama. And while Khodorkovsky is in jail. And by the way, so we all understand that crying about lack of rule of law in the Yukos case and sending, you know, the messages, complaining about it, it's all useless because you don't have to be a rocket scientist, you don't have to be a great expert in Russia to recognize that Yukos case is the core of Putin's rule. That actually was a turning point. Not that Russia before Khodorkovsky arrest was a great place for democracy. I believe that the foundation of this Putin's dictatorship were seeded in the Yeltsin's eras, but Russia had some kind of fragile institutions that could be used for a future buildup. But most important, there was still an opportunity to create a right business environment. And Khodorkovsky, unlike other business Russian oligarchs, he was trying to build a transparent company. And by the way, paid more taxes per barrel of oil than any other oil company in Russia. Also, he did a lot of charity work and supported opposition, both communist and liberal opposition. So by arresting Khodorkovsky, Putin actually did a very important thing to strengthen the rule of oligarchy in Russia. It was a signal that no longer rich people should pay taxes to the treasury. It's all about direct contacts between the government and business. So in 2003, Russia lost probably last chance to move back to the road which potentially could lead to the civilized world. So asking Putin and his regime to release Khodorkovsky means asking them to relinquish power. I made a prediction in early 2004, and I was quite sorry that this prediction was right, saying that as long as Putin stays in power, Khodorkovsky would be in jail. It's conventional wisdom now, but denying this fact, I mean, it's a great disservice to Russia and the future of my country, because Russia is a country of symbols. Any dictatorship has symbols. And clearly these two names are together, Putin and Khodorkovsky. Whether we like it or not, Putin stays in power, Khodorkovsky stays in jail. Khodorkovsky is free man, Putin is out of job. Actually, one of the problems of Putin is that he knows that he cannot be out of job. It will be much worse. When Putin talks about being a slave on the galleys, I think it's a Freudist confession. He knows that he's chained to power in Russia. He loses power, he will lose everything. The whole empire, probably most powerful and most, the richest empire in the world, may collapse as a house of cards. Because, again, Russia has another important element of history. It's looking for scapegoats. And even Putin's closest allies taking over the power will look for a scapegoat. And everybody knows, you know, where the finger will end. Now, I just wanted to say that is just to give you an idea about Putin and other dictators. It's a great company for Putin, bad company for my country. Yeah. And it's interesting thing is that when we talk about these modern dictators, we should not forget the fact that they are not as typical as dictators of the past, because, with the exception of Cuba, of course, but Ahmadinejad and Chavez and many others, Mugabe in Zimbabwe, they talk about elections. They like to use the same vocabulary. They can swear with the Constitution. They talk about campaigns, about donations. They love this image to present themselves as members of the same club. Actually, Putin did it extremely well, and that was the problem. Actually, in Russia, what we call elections, with quotes and quotes and with irony, actually, the Russian polling stations, typical Russian polling station, looks like that. Yeah, Shredder. And since I mentioned elections as the word that is being abused so often, so we may probably have to give a little, spend a little time actually to travel in history, travel backward in the past to look for origins of democracy, because this is a typical word. Democracy, we're building democracy, and we know that this democracy now, again, word also being abused. And I brought 3 documents to your attention. First one is the English Bill of Rights, 1689. Second document is probably the most known, Declaration of Independence, United States, 1776. The third document is a French Declaration of the Rights of Man, 1789. I mean, without any exaggeration, we may call these 3 documents the founding pillars of the Western democracy. Now, the trick is, how many times word democracy is used in all these 3 documents? I don't want to fool the audience. 0. Correct. 0. The word democracy is not here at all. And I want to emphasize, those are the basic documents that declare the creation of this new society. Why? Because the founding fathers, whether in UK or in America, or the members of this freely elected parliament of convent in France, they just recognized that it's not about the word democracy. It's about fundamental rights that define the relationship between the government and the people. That's what mattered. So the method by what leaders are chosen is irrelevant. It's all about securing individual rights. And that's what makes democracy real or not real. And today we have managed democracy, consolidated democracy, sovereign democracy, and those adjectives, they are diluting the word itself. So if we want to investigate the quality of the rule of the certain regime or the rule in a country, we have to look at other things, but at the just process, at the election process. And by the way, Great Britain doesn't have a written constitution at all. There's no constitution. Zimbabwe, Venezuela, and Russia, they have very good constitutions. Big deal. Without respect for human rights and individual liberties, these documents are used to a paper and over countless abuse. So Chavez can hold a referendum, and one after another, and showing no respect to the basic individual rights. And Putin party can allow so-called legitimate opposition to, or official, but to participate in elections knowing the results. It's all fixed in advance. So big deal. So election without selection is a charade. Democracy without rights is a sham. And law that serves only the state is dictatorship.